Okay, that is the President Ramnath Kovind talking about India's fight against COVID-19. But markets' mind is, of course, more on what the economic survey will unveil at the union budget tomorrow. We'll talk more about the markets, the way forward. Jigar Mistry of Boyne Capital will join in next. Stay tuned. Welcome back. It's a big day for the markets. In fact, today as well as tomorrow, the economic survey will be tabled later on in the afternoon. We will get glimpses, source-based information on what it's likely to reveal. It will talk about it's an official report card of the economy. It will tell you the state of the economy, what the growth is likely to look like for FY22, estimated between 9–9.5%. Growth projections for FY23. Perhaps it will give some recommendations on policy reforms, but these are not binding for the government. So in a way, it's a policy guide. But ahead of that, the markets are, the bulls are in complete control of the market. The Nifty and the Sensex are up close to about 1.5%. And this month itself, the Nifty has been flat if you take a look at the performance month to date. But this compares with a dismal performance compared to the rest of the globe, where a Nasdaq was down 12%, the Korean markets, Kospi was down 10.5%, and even other markets like the Hang Seng, the Shanghai, Nikkei, they were all, trading with deep cuts. In context, the Indian markets have been fairly resilient with a flat performance. The Nifty IT continues to be the strength in the recovery. So the Nifty IT index is up 3% today, up 5% over the last 2 days. Tech Mahindra is the big gainer ahead of numbers tomorrow. Nifty Realty too has been rallying for the last 3 days with a gain of close to about 5%. And it's also a big day of earnings today. Tata Motors, Sun Pharma, HPCL, BPCL, IOC, that trio will be reporting numbers. Jigar Mistry, the co-founder of Boyne Capital, will join in to talk about the markets and the way forward. Jigar, morning, and thanks so much for joining in. Before we get chatting about the markets and banks and sectoral ideas, I wanted to get your thoughts in on Fluorochem, Gujarat Fluorochem. Now that stock is up 350% in the last 1 year. Today as well, it's up close to about 8%. Can you tell us, that's a stock that you like. Why is it?
Good morning, Rima. Thank you for inviting me to your show. Yes, that's a company that we have held in for a little more than 4 years now. And the reason why we picked it is that if you look at the fluorochemistry, all the three companies that are there, SRF, Navin Fluorine and Gujarat Fluorochem, they went their separate ways after the 2000 and through CER credits that they got. And whereas, SRF chose the agrochem business, Navin Fluorine chose the pharmaceutical and related activity, Gujarat Fluorochem went into PTFE, which is a little more difficult product to stabilize. And whereas those two companies had done phenomenally well, Fluorochem had not done so well. If you look at the last 10 years, you are right, last 3 years it did fairly well. Now what's very clearly emerging is that if you look at the next 3 or 4 years, they're likely to be very interesting for fluorochemicals. They're expanding their capacities in PTFE. That's one space that, they're likely to see a decent upside in. Secondly, the new fluoropolymers that they are developing, they mentioned on the call as well that they are likely to see a decent upside on that. The R22 gas capacity is enhanced, the caustic sort of pricing increase is benefiting them. The new fluoro specialty chemicals that they have introduced and which are awaiting clarity, I think in the run-up to FY24, I think all those will get priced in. So if I look at my estimates, we are looking at 700 odd crore EBITDA last year, translating to something like 15 to 1600 crore EBITDA by FY24. The latest quarter numbers were close to, I think, 320 crore EBITDA. So they are already at one sort of 1,200 run rate. Now, in addition to this, there are actually two optionalities. One is the LiPF6 molecule that they are developing, which has applications in the lithium-ion battery. They'll likely commercial the pilot phase in the next 3 months. And if that is sort of found favor, then they will commercialize the whole plant by the end of the current calendar year. So by FY25, there is a large optionality, which we currently are not building in the numbers that I mentioned. And also Dahej, they will likely go for an expansion. There is not a huge amount of clarity on that. But post FY25, you are likely to see a decent sort of number upside there. And compared to the other two players, Fluorochem has not been trading at as rich multiples. So it was one of our, preferred picks all through last year, and we own this name.
All right, Jigar, good morning. Thanks for joining us. This is Pavitra. So that's the call in Gujarat Fluorochem. Another stock that I know you like is UPL, and you said you've recently bought it as well. Take us through why you're so positive on UPL. It's not really done much, right, this stock in the past 6 months or so. So take us through what you like about UPL, and is there anything else in the sector that also seems attractive to you?
Good morning, Pavitra. So yes, it's the fifth largest agrochemical company in the world, right? Presence in across the globe, 138 countries, 1,300 registered products. I think it just delivered the numbers while I was getting ready for this. But what we like here is that if you break it down into three large categories, one is the plain vanilla, post-patent sort of product profile where it's doing okay. Secondly, it has two new interesting areas. One is the differentiated products, the likes of mancozeb molecules, which has started evolving since 2011. And increasingly, they are looking at this biological-based next-generation products, the sustainable variety, the incremental sort of growth is coming through. And by FY26, I think they want to get close to 50% of their product profile from the differentiated molecules. Now, in addition to this, they are also working in framework where they're trying to identify farmers' problems, open a lot of solutions to that. And the last part is where, they are this farm.fresh or nature.farm is what they have, almost onboarded 1.4 million farmers and 60,000 retailers. So I think, a company with 45,000 crores of revenue trading at 60,000 crore market cap 11 times a year forward, I understand, something happens in Brazil, the sort of impacts the stock price here. But beyond the point, I think if you look at the sum of these parts, we think that there can be a reasonable upside to this name. So it's one thing we slowly started building out position on this one. Unlike Fluorochem, which we have held through a lot of years, this is something that we are increasingly looking to, see how the company does.
Hi, Jigar. Morning. The other two pockets you're positive on, one is banks and the reopening trade. What is the upside here?
Hi, Sumera. Good morning. Yes. See, banks, I think a lot of people sort of look at it from a status quo perspective and then arrive at the assumption or arrive at the conclusion rather that if you look at the historical sort of interest rate hike cycles, then banks are the ones that don't perform a lot. I think the stance that we are choosing to take is look at it from a holistic picture. And, from 2016, you have seen 2015 was bank AQR, 2016 demon, 17 was GST implementation, 18 was NBFC crisis, and two pandemics, right, 20 and 21. And during this time, I think the resilience that the banking books have reported have been phenomenally well stood. And in that scenario, you're still not seeing the system-wide, growth come in for the banking system. So when that comes through, because of the decent asset quality or actually among the best asset qualities, ICICI Bank, for example, reported a negative net slippage. I don't know when that had happened. And when the system growth is still a single digit, the likes of SBI is still to report, but ICICI and even HDFC reported very high double-digit numbers, 19% for ICICI Bank. So I think if you look at it from this perspective, the ROE profile for most of these banks will actually increase over the next 2 or 3 years, and structurally they make for a very good case. Lastly, in terms of the interest rate cycle, I think we need to break it down into two categories. One is that, if this is a good 8-10 increase that you are pricing in, then for the first sort of 3-4 interest rate hikes, you will arguably see, the NIMs of all of these banks rising because the asset gets priced much faster than liabilities, which is again the bank. So the one that, we continue to own and maybe last 3 or 4 sort of interactions I've been maintaining that are ICICI, SBI, Federal Bank, Canara Bank. So I think we need to break that down and look at the banks accordingly. Reopening was something that we were very interested in about 6 months back. We have sort of curtailed a lot of exposure there. We used to own beverages companies, a lot of sort of reopening trades. But the one that we like now are ABFRL, the Aditya Birla Fashion and Retail part. And one is a smaller company that we have again owned for a good part of 3 years, is a company called Pokarna. They also reported earnings, I think, a couple of days back, and those numbers were very good as well.
Jigar, pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much for giving us so many ideas and thoughts to chew upon. That's Jigar Mistry of Buoyant Capitals, bullish on the banks. He likes IT as well, something he didn't speak about. A couple of these reopening trades like Aditya Birla Fashion and individual stocks like Gujarat Fluorochem as well as UPL. We'll shift our attention to commodities because over there Brent crude prices are on the boil. They've hit $91 per barrel, a 7-year